All right, so again, welcome to Refresh Friday. Myself, Alex, and the one and only Cliff Banks, the Nostradamus of the automotive industry and president and founder of the Banks Report. Cliff, thanks for joining us today. It's been a while, my friend.
It has. Thanks for having me. It's good to see you guys.
I know the three of us go way back. I guess way back, we could say that, at least in the automotive industry, right?
Yes.
Longer than the average career.
Yeah, back when you were the editorial director of Ward's Automotive.
True. That is a while ago.
That was.
We're talking probably 15 years ago.
I guess when you started.
Has it been that long?
No, it hasn't been that long. No,
Close.
Well, DealerRefresh turns 15 next year. So
maybe it's a little less than that. Maybe 12.
Yeah, at least 13, 14.
Right, but
insane. That's scary.
Yeah, we're getting old, gentlemen.
Speak for yourself, Alex.
Yeah, I'm the youngest one on this call. So
yeah, I know. So.
Yeah.
Well, typically, we usually start the show off with some news. But we've got Cliff with us today. He is the news.
Right. Why do we need to say the news? He's here.
I think, Alex, we could probably take the lazy route out today and just ask Cliff a bunch of newsworthy questions and allow him to just ramble along. Cliff, so you were at NADA, right?
Yes.
So how was it for you? I mean, I've seen you. I mean, when you walk through, as soon as you hit the conference area, you start walking through, everyone walks up to you, they're hugging you, they're kissing you, they're shaking your hand. How do you deal with that?
I don't know. I don't realize it's going on, and then people start telling me, and people that are walking with me get pretty tired of it. So this year I started walking with my phone. I don't want to give the secret away, but walking with my phone to my ear to act like I was on the phone talking.
I've done that before. So everybody that watches this, if you see Cliff on his phone, he's not talking to anybody, even if
free game.
Right. No, I build in a lot more. I've learned to build in a lot of extra time to get from A to B now. So start taking fewer meetings. It's not as bad as it looks, but.
And I sent you a text. No lamb balls this year.
Yeah. Oh, that was a story.
I'll never forget that one.
Well, you might have to tell that story now, guys.
Oh, just it was a late night. We were in Kentucky.
Was it Kentucky?
I think it was Louisville.
Probably. Or Lexington. Louisville or Lexington.
It might have been Lexington, yeah. And we found this small dive that was still open, and it was late. And they had, their bar menu was still open. On the bar menu was lamb balls. And I don't know why. We just thought it was funny. So we ordered.
Yeah.
They were delicious. And I think.
What's that Chevy Chase movie?
Was Charlie with us?
I don't remember. That was a long time ago. But
it was. I thought it was me, you, Charlie V, and maybe one or two other people. I'm with you. I don't remember. But I had everyone convinced that they were actual lamb balls.
Right. Yes, I remember that.
They're actually just meatballs made out of lamb. So anyway.
What's that Chevy Chase movie with these?
Love Chevy Chase.
Was it Sheep Balls or what was the? I'm trying to remember the name of the movie. It's an old one. For you guys are older than me, y'all should remember it.
Yeah, really. I know all Chevy Chase movies. I don't remember that part. Anyway,
you mentioned Charlie Vogelheim.
Yes.
Yeah.
How's he doing?
He's good. I just got an email from him about 5 minutes ago.
I haven't spoken to Charlie in quite a while. Shouts out to Charlie.
Yes.
Awesome guy, man. One of the nicest. I've always said that dude could he could go and speak to someone at the highest level at the White House, speak to the president, and then turn around and literally be in like some trailer park and be able to hold a conversation from every degree. He just has that charisma to him. Amazing guy. So, all right.
Shout out to Charlie.
Of course.
So should we get this show rolling?
Yeah, get it going.
Yeah, let's go.
So NADA, CDK, getting a lot of press out of Fortellis. However, trying to figure out what it is has been a little difficult.
What is Fortellis?
Yeah, I mean, the one we're getting all the information from right now seems to be Brian Pash.
Yeah, I think a couple years will tell us a lot about Fortellis. Not to be funny about it, but it is a platform, a technology platform in which developers can design and develop new products. CDK is creating the API standards that will enable anybody in the automotive space to sign on to the platform and be able to develop their own solutions on the platform. So their hope, quote unquote, the way they're saying is they want to be able to create the environment that's going to reduce the fragmentation and the friction that we've had on the technology side in the automotive retail space, which obviously we have been talking about for years, and vendors and dealers have complained about this for a long time.
Well, is that just in regards to utilizing CDK data?
No.
This is about just all.
This is completely separate. So, I mean, to be crazy about it, Reynolds could go on the platform and design their own solutions. They would pay a small fee for that. I think the initial sign-up fee is anywhere from, depending on the developer and the company, it's anywhere from $25 a year to $500 a year.
Okay. So it's like an app store, for lack of a better name.
Yeah, it would be like an app store or the Salesforce platform model, in which people, developers, companies develop products or apps for Salesforce. The reason this is big news is historically, I mean, this isn't the first time someone's tried this. I mean, we can go back to the early 1990s, and funny story, the Coin platform system, the founder, CEO, there was a move to create a platform similar to this, and everyone was, the Coin CEO was all over it. 3 weeks later, he sells to Reynolds and Reynolds, and the thing died. The whole concept died. And then we had the STAR standards from NADA in the early part of last decade. That was really mainly ended up becoming only a XML standard for batch movement of data. Then we had the Oxalo system, a few years after that never really got off the ground. Now it seems like I think the time is right on a couple levels. One, we have all of these new solutions from the digital retailing, which I'm sure we'll talk about, vehicle subscription models, and we really do need a much better seamless pathway of being able to tie these solutions together. Because if you really want to talk about digital retailing, I mean, you have to include everything from obviously the trade, the financing, to the titling of the vehicle, the registration. All of these things come into play, and certainly all of the documentation that the government requires a consumer to sign at the purchase point. So in order for us to have a seamless experience for the customer, I mean, we really need to have that on the back end also.
So a question for you.
And I'll get, but go on.
So, a lot of the reason many of these things failed was due to there not being much of an incentive to others to play along. So what is CDK doing that makes this a value to some of the solutions provided?
Well, let's be frank here. I mean, I think a big part of the challenge or the issue historically has been CDK and Reynolds and Reynolds, making it hard. I mean, they've controlled the market at the DMS level and the integration. And so, yeah, they've been part of the problem, quote unquote, but in a perverse or maybe counterintuitive, which is a better word, I think here, they've probably have protected the auto retail industry over the last 2 decades from would-be outsiders who had intentions of coming in and blowing the whole dealer model out. And frankly, I mean, Oracle, IBM, Microsoft, SAP, and others, large players have looked at getting into this industry and haven't because of the fragmentation on the technology side and the challenges that, that quote unquote the big DMS players provided. But now we're at a different point in history today. And I don't know if CDK has completely thought through the end game for themselves here, but we have a deep chasm right now that exists between the automotive retail industry and the connected autonomous Silicon Valley crowd. And the two aren't talking. And I go to a lot of these conferences that are autonomous mobility driven, and there's only been really 2 companies that I've seen that have participated in at least one conference, and it's Xtime and DealerFresh on the service side, and they have been at the TU Automotive Conference here in Detroit the last few years. But other than that, it's just mere lip service that's given to dealerships, to the retail industry. At some point, as the connected vehicle becomes the dominant vehicle, and I'm not talking autonomous, I'm talking merely connected, there's going to have to be a meeting point or some sort of platform that exists in which some of these large outside players to automotive, we're talking Samsung, even BlackBerry, NVIDIA, Harman, Intel, all these companies are going to have to interact with the dealer at some level. And right now, we don't have that platform does not exist. I think Fortellis becomes that platform. And I think it's going to help protect, hopefully, if it's executed correctly, at some point, it will help protect dealers or the industry from being circumvented. Because if you think about the data from the connected car, all that data today really resides on the DMS. And the connected car is going to provide the manufacturer and other players direct access to the customer that they don't have today. And where does the retail industry fit in that world? Having a platform to which we can develop solutions together, I think helps protect dealership.
Protection's a very, never thought of it that way. So maybe you're saying CDK and Reynolds deserve a little credit for their
unwittingly so, but yes, but absolutely, but I do. I do think that, like I said, it's a little bit perverse or counterintuitive, but I don't know that dealers were in a position to be able to beat back some of those potential threats 10, 20 years ago, other than through the franchise laws that are in place. But listen, I mean, it's been a common refrain through the years of the tech firms that I've talked to who have worked to get into the space that have backed off and said, it's just it's not worth the effort.
So speaking of threats, how's and speaking of CDK a little bit more, any more insight as to what's going on with the lawsuits, particularly Authenticom and Cox Automotives?
Well, there's a big context here. First of all, we saw one of the first hammers to drop a couple weeks ago when the FTC stopped the Automate acquisition, and we kind of knew that was happening.
Yeah, you predicted that last year.
I did when I wrote the story that they were going to have some issues there. What's going on now is that the FTC, separate from the automate deal, is investigating Reynolds and CDK for antitrust behavior resulting from a data sharing, I guess to be simple about it, data sharing agreement from 2015. So they are still investigating that. They've stepped up the heat. They've subpoenaed several third-party vendors and dealers to discuss that action. And I would imagine that at some point in the near future, we'll probably hear news of a pretty sizable fine if the FTC continues down this path. So there's going to be some pain yet for those companies, I think, regarding the whole antitrust data integration behavior. The other track that's going on are the lawsuits that you mentioned. They are currently in multi-district litigation in the Northern District in Illinois, in Chicago.
Which is favorable for CDK, right?
Well, they have they've got the judge there is very familiar. She's an expert on antitrust related issues. So, yeah, I mean, I guess it is favorable for CDK. I mean, they were pushing to have it there. They won. It's their home turf, so to speak. I think they know the judge. Well, yeah. So, but again, this thing, we'll see. I don't think that this thing goes to jury. The other thing is there's, I think, 12 now dealers that have filed class action lawsuits, and lawyers for each of these cases right now are slugging it out under the radar to determine who's going to be the lead counsel on the antitrust, on the class action suit. So it's kind of funny talking to the attorneys, various attorneys. We should see that in the next probably sometime by end of April. But really, yeah. Well, but other than that, it's still going to be, it's still going to take a while. I would imagine we're going to see some of these cases start getting settled. It is definitely in Cox's and CDK's best interest to settle their lawsuit, I think, before it gets down the road.
So a settlement, unfortunately, and tell me I'm wrong, but that doesn't really help dealers at the end of the day, does it?
Well, let's see what the FTC does. What the FTC comes back. I mean, they could do nothing. They could levy a fine, or they could levy a fine and restrict behavior or of CDK and Reynolds. So yeah, you have that track. Lawsuits, well, the lawsuits wouldn't just be cash settlements. I would imagine Cox, when they settle with CDK, if and when they do, part of the agreement would include a favorable contract, data sharing contract with Cox. Yeah, and the reason they filed the lawsuit, though, is because they were ticked off that once they saw the details of the Reynolds and Reynolds CDK agreement, that was basically no cost at all. Cox just said, "Oh, this is a joke. I mean, this doesn't work." So it could actually work in the dealer's favor.
So Fortellis isn't necessarily a move for assistance to other companies, say startups, who can't spend the crazy amounts of money, and it is crazy amounts of money that they want for integration with their data feeds.
Yeah, and this is where we really pushed the management team at NAD on Friday night. It was funny. I mean, Brian Pash pushed with a couple of questions. Chip Perry did. I did after when the press conference was over, and it's still kind of fuzzy how Fortellis is going to interact with the current data sharing agreements. That's
why I struggle with Fortellis.
Well, I think
being a value.
The whole backstory right now. CDK has activist investors, and they, from the beginning, have pushed CDK to follow the Reynolds and Reynolds playbook because they wanted to see similar margins. So part of the playbook was charging a significant amount of money for data integration. in talking with the CDK folks, and they have to be very careful because they're engaged in FTC investigations and lawsuits. So they have to be very careful with what they say. But Brian McDowell, the CEO, did respond when pushed about this issue, that at some point he could see those data integration charges and Fortellis kind of merging together. So here's the way I see the world playing out over the next 5 years.
All right, come on, Nostradamus.
I think if CDK executes on Fortellis, both from a marketing and technology perspective, they're able to execute. Fortellis could end up becoming the main revenue source for CDK. Because if you think about it, CDK right now is charging, they've got 40% of the dealership market on the DMS. They have some solutions that they sell, and they're, they get money from the data integration stuff. But that's a small pool of players. But if Fortellis has the opportunity of opening their interaction from a small pool to an incredibly large pool of players that would involve parts suppliers, insurance companies, titling firms, the state registration, DMVs, you name it. I mean, and think about a vehicle today that has more than 10,000 components. And at some point, a GM today, and Toyota would tell you, they envision a world in which every single component on the vehicle is going to have its own digital ID. So a car is going to be its own neural network. But all that data has got to be going somewhere. And think about, a component on the vehicle getting ready to break down. Fortellis, if you're on this Fortellis platform, and you can do it without Fortellis, but it becomes a lot harder without having an industry standard platform with industry standard APIs to connect to. But that data could be sent to the dealership's service department, whatever software they have, their service scheduling software, the service pricing guide, interacts with the consumer's phone or interacts with the consumer to let them in, and they put together the appointment. If the part, it goes to the dealership parts department. If the part's not there, it interacts with the parts supplier, which then interacts with the shipping department and the shipping company to make sure that the proper part is at the dealership. And all this is automated, and it's all going through all this data, and all this stuff's going through the Fortellis platform. CDK's charging 5 cents. Let's just say, I don't know what but 3 to 5 cents per data transaction or passage. That becomes not $2.2 billion that they're making now. It becomes billions of dollars. And especially
their angle is starting to make a lot of sense.
Right.
I'm still struggling with how this helps everyone else.
Right.
And maybe CDK needs to come out with some better materials, at least something we can all digest and really help us better understand this thing.
I think it's very new, and I think it's going to evolve. And I'm not sure that they are looking completely or seeing the entire picture either.
So it was a rush to get to NADA?
Yeah, I think that was part of it. I mean, they have the service stuff. Equifax had already written some APIs to it. They did some with a Sirius and automatic Sirius radio. They have a pretty nifty service solution that they just showed at NADA, and that was all done through Fortellis. But there's still a lot of work that has to be done. I think a lot of the APIs still have to be created, I'm guessing. So this is a long play. And I think that they're still going to refine the messaging and some of that execution. So, the possibilities are very intriguing. Man.
It is. There's no doubt about that. So, if we're going to call the current Fortellis material that we have and write it off to the NADA rush, which I can tell you, I'm very familiar with those kind of things.
Right.
Speaking of like NADA rushes, is there anything that you would say to some of these technology providers who are always trying to hit this NADA deadline? Like, is it really that necessary to have something out for NADA anymore? Is it that important?
I mean, yeah, I question that. I think the past and previous years, it was always everyone wanted to do a press conference at NADA, and I kept pushing back against that because it just took time. I mean, it was crazy back when it was Friday and Saturday. You would have press conferences all morning and into the afternoon on both days, and it just took us away from doing the real reporting. So those have died. Those have gone by the wayside for the most part, which is good. But yeah, I think Alex, you bring up a good point. Sometimes it's better to hold your ground. But again, the thing with NADA is you have a lot of other press there. Bloomberg, Wall Street Journal, Detroit News, Detroit Free Press. So you have everyone there at one time. It's a lot easier to get the message out.
You gotta have something to say.
And it's not just the press con. And if you're quiet, you're invisible. So I think, I think it serves a purpose.
That's a good point.
Yep.
So,
and let me just respond to Iago's question about CDK.
It's hard to avoid that one, isn't it?
I don't. I'm not saying that CDK and Reynolds are the good guys here. I'm not saying they're bad guys. It's business. It's the way of the world. I have pushed back with them on their prices. I think that they are overboard, but I understand why they're there. But I think I think we are moving into a new era. Like I wrote today, we're moving into an era of transition and uncertainty in the auto industry. And the scenario I just laid out to you is not what CDK told me. All right. This is how I'm envisioning the world. I mean, I get to a lot of these.
In all fairness to you, Cliff, we are kind of putting you in a tough spot, sort of making you a voice for CDK, and that's not a fair place.
This thing could be a colossal failure. Again, I mean, there's no guarantee here, and CDK has to manage their message. I mean, there's a lot of distrust and frustration with CDK in the market right now, both at the dealer and vendor level. There's no doubt about that, and they've got a lot of pain they have to endure yet before they can rightfully claim, hey, we're the good guys here. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah. So. Go ahead, Jeff. I see you got a question burning up there.
No, I'm just thinking about, how that correlates into if 50% of sales in the near future are fleet, then how does that play into? Because now, how does that correspond to the dealership level? And I don't know. I'm confused.
Well, one of the things that came out of
where did the 50% of all vehicle sales being fleet?
You told me all about it, dude.
Who said that?
I have no idea.
Huh.
Let me add. I think that we see with the three large technology vendors, Cox, Reynolds, and CDK. One thing that became clear to me last week, is that the three have decided very different views of the world moving forward and are embarking on three very different strategies.
Completely. Yeah.
And it's going to be interesting to see how these play out and who's right and who's wrong. I think it's going to be a mixture of all three. But certainly, look, Cox has said, and I'll say this, he said publicly, I mean, at a conference, I was on a panel with one of their executives 2 weeks ago, and it was
that Mark O'Neill?
It was Mark O'Neill, and and we could see this. Listen, we can see the progression here with Cox Automotive. They certainly see a world in which I think within 10 years, a large portion, maybe as much as 50% of the new vehicles sold will be to fleet-based companies, and the rest to private owners, which that portends a vastly different world than what we live in today.
Sure does.
And
a little.
Yeah. And they listen, Cox is doing a lot on the development side and investment side with some of these new models. They're experimenting. I mean, they're the financial, they're the financial backer to Clutch Technologies and Flex Drive, which is the two
subscription services.
Thank you, Alex. Subscription models that dealers are starting to sign up with. They're doing some stuff on the connected vehicle. They're doing stuff certainly on the autonomous vehicle. They have the infrastructure with Manheim, with the service capabilities. They have the data capabilities. So it makes sense that they would start leveraging those assets to move towards that, down that field. I don't, obviously I've written, you guys see what I've written recently. I disagree that the world is going to look like that in 10 years.
But so so you mentioned the products that Cox has that feed that kind of world. But they've got a lot of other products that don't feed that kind of world, like Fin Solutions, KBB, Auto Trader. There's this other one I'm kind of familiar with named Dealer.com. That doesn't really fit in that
you'll have to
sort of worldview.
Subscribe to the bank by analysis of that.
Okay. Well, it's a
but you're asking some very insightful questions there. Yes.
Yeah.
But again, I think some of this is with these companies. I think some of their strategy is evolving, and sometimes I don't want to say you're making it up as you go along, but there's an element of that. I don't know that strategy would have been in place 2 years ago or even a year ago. I don't listen. We know CDK strategy. I mean, they wanted to buy Automate and take out a competitor. Well,
that's what they've always been doing.
Right, but now that it's become much harder to do, and they were shut down. So I'll tell you what, Fortellis and their Drive Flex DMS that they announced a couple weeks ago would not have made it to market or been announced as quickly had it not been for the FTC forcing it. Just would not have been. All
right.
Yeah.
Good old central government. Sometimes it works. All right. So why don't we move over to another topic? Something that is definitely up Nostradamus' alley. Sorry, I know you hate that. I'm going to keep saying it because of it. But
reason to do it.
So 2018 acquisitions. What do you think this year looks like?
Well, we've already had a pretty robust first quarter, much stronger than we've had in previous years. I think my guess is we'll see a CDK go on a buying spree at some point because they've engaged twice now in the last 2 years sale talks to private equity firms, and both times the talks have faltered. Really, I think the biggest challenge for CDK on that front is lack of opportunity for organic revenue growth right now, short-term revenue growth. So they need to they'll need to buy a couple companies to drive some of that revenue growth. Automate was not a revenue driver acquisition. That was a defensive acquisition to stop the flow of losses on the small dealership level that they were experiencing. That was a defensive play.
So this is that was just like an advertisement for Automate right there.
Well,
we want to go check them out.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't just Automate. It was,
I'm kidding.
Too, but
be careful. I'm going to get you in trouble here at some point, Cliff.
Yeah,
that's my goal for today.
Maybe
we should let Jeff take over now.
But no,
that's why I'm being quiet. Just sit back.
I think we'll see a couple we'll see a couple more big plays this year. And I think it's going to be more of the next couple of years, though. I look at it as a period of time rather than just year to year. Although I write my reports that way, but I think we're entering a period of where really it could be over the next 5 years. We'll see some interesting plays. So
So you're talking about, growth, right? 1 to 5 years. Are there any companies that, and maybe while you were at NADA, are there any smaller companies that you've sort of got your eye on that you think may have some significant growth over the next 1 to 5 years that play into this whole?
I would, I'll say this. I mean, I would keep an eye on Dominion's, their new DMS.
I've always had my eye on Dominion, but
yeah, well, true. I mean, I'm saying it for a while, but I think this new DMS that they've just launched is it's the right strategy, it's the right product, and I think within 2 years from now we could see if they execute it correctly, we could see some pretty remarkable growth from them.
Yeah,
just due to some market conditions that we'll see in 2 years.
They're not really a smaller company.
No, you're right. But and I think it's hard to predict with the small stuff. I mean, it seems like the website business has become hot again, at least on the private equity world. There's a lot of interesting conversations going on. Two that have been acquired already. Sutherland's, the Fusion Zone by the private equity group, and then by.
Oh, really? I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, and then we had obviously the
Dealer Inspired with Cars.com.
Right. So I think we'll see Cars.com make another deal.
Where's Dealer On? They haven't been acquired yet.
Dealer On's not been acquired. Dealer Process is out there. I think, but these challenges, these companies have good businesses, and at some point are attractive to potentially to private equity. The other companies that we don't talk about often at all, I would say keep your eye on IHS Marquette, which owns Carfax and Polk. They just did the mine deal. Keep your eye on them. Keep your eye on Solera. Solera is, I think Solera is going to be a big player. I've been saying that for a while, but I think they're just, they're still.
Who are they? What do they do?
Oh, we were always watching them at Cox. They're definitely.
They've got more data than anyone in this on the service side.
Service side only.
But they're making moves towards the retail end.
Yeah, they're going to make some big moves, I think, here in the near future. So
sounds like an acquisition for IHS, real quick.
Well, Solera is owned by Vista Equity, which owns Dealer Socket.
Oh,
but the two don't talk. Or when I say talk, there's not really been much movement towards any integration there. It's two separate companies. But I can tell you, Solera will be a player, and I think IHS will make some more moves. I think Experience got to make a move too.
Yeah, they're big.
Experience been, they lost out on the CarProof deal, which was a Carfax competitor. They, I think the deal with Automotive Mastermind, they bought String, but that was a small one. I think we could see more from Experience moving forward.
Yeah, I didn't quite understand that acquisition. So, but speaking on that, digital retailing, which I know that's your favorite buzzword.
It's definitely mine.
So, what's, we've got a bunch of, echo chambers that have gone crazy in your recent article that you just wrote about retail model, not exactly going, I guess your point to tell the naysayers and dealers, aren't going away. I don't know, elaborate on that. What's happening?
We're still so very new into this digital retail concept.
Well, first off, how would one define digital retailing? Start there.
There you go.
I've always used it. I was using the term online transaction because I think that better captures the idea of this is an actual transaction that's happening. I mean, digital retailing includes a much broader scope of the process, of the buying process. Listen, the talk is all about going to the people buying a car on the internet. Carvana, Vroom, push that. Tesla was pushing that.
They're all doing so well.
Extremely well.
Yeah.
Well,
Tesla's killing it right now.
I don't know that the industry's ready yet. I don't.
Someone brought up a point not too long ago around the reviews for Carvana, and that they I guess, I don't know what they've been able to do, but apparently there's a enormous amount of negative reviews with Carvana.
Well, not on their website. If you look at
not on their website, but outside of.
But if you look outside of the website, and I was looking at Yelp a couple weeks ago, and it was a very small number of reviews, but they were averaging 2.5 stars at the time on that and other outside review sites. Listen, I don't pay much attention to the review sites that much. But when you start reading some of the Glassdoor employee comments, you start reading some of the other comments on the review sites, it starts painting a much different picture than a rosy, everything's kumbaya world that they like to project. I think it's the transaction's a tough vehicle, and I don't know that the industry is fully ready yet. Think about this. We have all of these. We have almost 30 now of various types, various levels of online transaction-related solutions in the space. And then widget apps you put on the website. The challenge is, how do we incorporate that process into the dealership? We have to either add a completely different process onto our salespeople or our BDC, or do we go back to the internet department that we had 15 years ago and have a true internet e-commerce department to handle those deals and those customers? I don't know. The other challenge that we've seen, at least through the end of last year, is that some of the early players, dealerships that are progressive, and then we're playing with these online transaction pieces, we're seeing that they were losing money on the F&I side and have pulled back because.
Why would that be so? I was a part of an online transaction company early in the days, 8 years ago, and the F&I is where it actually excelled. But you had to set it up properly.
Right. You got to have your products and everything out there for somebody to research and look at.
If it was straight up just go purchase a car, then the F&I is going to suffer. But F&I's got to be injected into that.
This is what I'm saying. We're still so very early into this. We don't have the playbooks. We don't have the playbook written yet. What works, what doesn't, what types of videos, what types of menus. We don't have those in place yet. And it's going to take a while, I think. It's going to take a couple of years, 2, 3, 4 years before we really start seeing some real success. Now, Cox is touting their Vegas model.
Who do you think's at the forefront of this?
Well, they are. They have been to a point.
Cox is at the forefront of it?
Well, they've been talking about it. They had Make My Deal, which was a modified version, I think. Here's the challenge. The promise is these products are going to reduce the time spent at the dealership. They're going to reduce the friction and hopefully create transparency and trust between the customer and the dealer. But what we're seeing right now is that the majority of these, the customer is not getting all the way through the system to the end point. So they're getting part of the way through. So it's creating more of a lead on steroids model.
Yeah.
These are people that are, you can get them in and close them a lot easier.
I love that term, by the way.
So thanks. But the problem I think is what's the business model for the companies offering these solutions? Where's their return on all the investment that they've put into developing? How do they get and I think some of that's going to be adjusted, and we're going to see some. Listen, I just think it's still very new, and there's a lot of learning that we have to do as an industry. And it's not going to be something as simple as buying books online or buying a pair of shoes online. You know, you hear that refrain all the time, but the fact is the car buying process, the transaction is the most complicated transaction that we do. I mean, as a society. I mean, it's even more complicated than a house and than buying a house. So because of that, we're going to have a lot of pain and a lot of missteps moving forward.
So, you know, as you're explaining some of this, I'm thinking back to some of my experience, and I don't want this to come off the wrong way, but you know, I don't feel like a lot of the vendors I've worked with really have a good appreciation or understanding of what a dealer does, and I've even seen where a lot of the employees of those dealerships don't even want to talk to a dealer at all. You know, the dealers are just not something that they really truly love. So, you know, I struggle with where this is going to come from. The current players don't seem like.
Well, I'll start with this, and this is something that I have probably for the last several years have been really, I'm going to quote, frustrated about. I think we are our own worst critics in this industry, and it drives me crazy every time at these conferences I hear how bad dealers are. I see on social media how bad dealers are. Dealers need to wake up. Dealers are resistant to change. Dealers this, dealers that. That's garbage. I mean, listen, there's no doubt that there are problems, inherent problems with the model in terms of interaction with people. But we're talking about a business in which you're interacting with people every single day. And it doesn't matter. I mean, every once in a while, you're going to have an employee who's having a bad day or a customer who's having a bad day. And it's going to be like oil and water at times. We're dealing with a lot of money. We're dealing with people who, at the ground floor at times, are crooks, to be blunt about it. And it's hard to police against that. But I'm going to throw a little bit of data out. And this is only one metric. It's certainly not the only metric. But the Federal Trade Commission each year receives about 86,200 or so complaints about the automotive space. That is independent service shops, independent used car dealers, and new car dealers combined. All right. Car dealerships, 18,200 new car dealerships in this country, and they conduct about 360 million financial transactions a year. That's not interactions. That is actual transactions. Do the math. I mean, you compare the number of complaints that the FTC receives. So just take half of those complaints. It's 0.000 at 4 zeros, 12. I mean, it's just so mind-bogglingly small. I know I've seen there aren't issues, but man. I mean, we love to feed this stereotype about ourselves, about our industry, that we're just terrible. And it's
so funny.
Who's got the gavel? It's time to case closed. There's no arguing that.
CarMax, they have this commercial, and the guy's got this saw, and he's carving out a lion. And the lion, and he's like, or a tiger, it's a lion. And he's like, well, you know, we don't pounce on our customers when they come in. And I'm sitting there, I'm watching this, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, but yet when a customer comes onto the dealership lot, if you don't go say hello, they will bitch about it. Well, I was there 4 or 5 times for 10 minutes and no one wanted to come up and talk to me. And you're like, but if we did come and talk to you, now we're pouncing on you. My whole point is, like, even CarMax, like, they make these commercials, you know, trying to just downgrade the dealerships, the traditional dealerships, and what we do from a sales perspective. And it just drives me crazy, man. It's stupid.
I saw an article the other day on Jalopnik, and the headline was, you know, dealers don't really care if you can afford that car or not. And my pushback was, why should a dealer be the one managing your finances, first of all? And Secondly, if they didn't put you in that car, you're going to go away pretty ticked off about not getting into the car that you want. And dealers, and this is why I think the dealership model today is so much stronger than a Tesla or some of these others. Dealerships have decades of experience of being able to manipulate in that's a bad word, but massage the down payment with the trade, with the whole back to the beginning, from the finance, from the lender to whatever, to being able to create a payment that hopefully, and then listen, if you're subprime, you're going to
that's just great.
But it's just working with the customer, providing a service, and getting them into the car they want, and just this mindset that's bad is
why?
I don't understand it.
Why is it bad?
Yeah, I don't get it.
I don't get it.
How many vendors are listening to this right now? Take note. Damn it.
Who knows? A lot.
But and then this other point, I'm sorry, but dealers are resistant to change. I don't know any dealers that are resistant to change. I just see quote unquote business people who have their life's work invested in their dealerships, and they're trying to be careful. They've seen it all. They hear all the latest, greatest, pitches, and it's just a matter of, okay, let's be careful and move cautiously. I don't see that as resistant to change. Listen, if they could sell an electric vehicle profitably, they would jump on it. If they could make a decent profit selling cars online, they would be all over it.
Yeah.
But they have businesses, they have employees, they've got it's crazy to think that we would expect them to do these things just because they're quote unquote friendly for the customer. It may not necessarily be good overall for the customer or for the dealership. So it's all about, when you own a business, you tend to take on a little bit different perspective, I think.
So bringing this back around to digital retailing, I think we've sort of we've painted around it a little bit as some of the reasons how it's come about and how our technology solutions providers believe it's a path forward and are pursuing it. But I think we're starting to show that they might not have the tools in their own toolkits or their own echo chambers even to actually pull it off.
Well,
is that a fair statement? Well, I don't know if you can answer that one, Cliff, without getting in trouble. But
no, like I said, I think we're going to see. We have a lot of learning, and I think, like I said, we're entering a phase over the next 5 to 8, 10 years in which it's an era of uncertainty for our industry, because we don't know where the end point or what the future is going to look like. We really don't. There's a lot of guesses, but this is the first time in the history of this industry, really since we started selling cars 100 years ago, that we don't really know. We don't know what the product is going to look like. Yeah. We don't know what the buying experience is going to look like. We don't know what the customer, what that buying experience and the ownership experience. So we have companies, dealers, vendors are making huge bets on this stuff. And I think it's going to be a period of both uncertainty and learning. And I think it's going to be 8 years at a minimum before we really have any clarity about what the long-term future of transportation looks like in this country.
Well, and that leads right back to the article you wrote today. So if anyone hasn't read that one, Cliff's talking about the around the bend on the next bend in the road not being too clear to see. So you should go read it. It's a good one.
Thanks.
Can we get that one on DealerRefresh?
Yeah, you can post it. I'll let you. Go ahead. It's opinion. I try to keep my opinion stuff more free. It's the hard analysis that and the deep reports that I do that are behind the paywall. So go have at it. Anytime you guys see something that you like, go ahead and use it.
Yeah, we'll almost syndicate you then. And speaking,
right more for you to do that.
By the way, as we're getting near the end here, we definitely need to give you a shout out the bank's report and how
As we
people
do
can
every
subscribe to it.
week.
Sorry, Jeff?
I say, as we do every week,
Yeah.
some mention of Cliff.
Yeah, but Cliff has the bank's report, and you can subscribe to it for a very small fee.
Right.
It's an annual fee, and in there, it's like having Nostradamus just coming to your inbox.
Crystal ball.
Yep.
He's been a guy that's been around too long.
That's great.
So,
Well, let's bring it to an end. What 2 minutes before the hour?
yeah, actually on time for a change.
Yeah.
We're like being professional with Cliff here.
No, I don't like it. So, all right, fantastic. Cliff, thank you so much. It's been great.
Thank you, guys.
Do this again. Maybe a couple months or something out there in the future.
Right.
So if you're, if you haven't subscribed to Dealer Refresh, please do so. Jump in the forums. Cliff, you haven't been in the forums for a while, but we'll get you on. I'm going to start taking the jack, start stabbing you a little bit, make sure you progress over there. So, but thanks everyone for joining us again. Thanks, Cliff. Thanks for your time and all your insightfulness.
For sure.
Thank you, guys. A lot of fun.
All right, let's bring it to an end. We'll see everybody next week, next Friday.
Take care.
Thank you.